Hey, this is Misery Loves Company, a weekly social reading series hosted by miserytourism.com. Each Friday, we welcome outsider and transgressive writers to come and share their work. And yeah, that's basically the whole fucking deal. Um, got several people lined up for this week. Daniel, who's first on my list, is not here yet, I think. So, William, are you ready to roll?
Me?
Cool.
Okay. You want
Uh,
a link? I have a PDF here.
oh, awesome. Awesome.
I think that works.
Let's give it a try. Works perfectly. Oh, wait. Yeah, works perfectly. That was my bad, not yours. Okay.
You can hear me fine?
Loud and clear.
The Rot Fraud.
Put
What
my
he hated
headphones
most.
on, right?
Sorry.
Sorry, what was that?
I
Oh,
got
I
it.
think I can hear you clearly now. Sorry, I think maybe there was
Yeah,
just a mix up with some other audio there.
yeah. Something interrupted me. Okay. The Rot Fraud. What he hated most of all were people's dreams. Everyone had dreams, he thought, and they were never as interesting as they imagined. Their atmosphere never amounted to anything. He saw in life a wide range of possibilities that excited people. They branched out in different directions. But when it came for them to be realized, they were pared down, forced into the same pathways as everything else, and sprouted as nothing more than a stupid look on someone's face. It was only stupid people who thought in terms of atmosphere, aura, or vibe. They could never fully explain the power of these things because they had none. They simply imprisoned you with their endless talking. He knew these people were ruining the world with their selfishness and whoring around. On his 21st birthday, alone in his bedroom, he decided to start a blog. He wrote about the different kinds of people he thought were ruining the world. These included weak men who liked to dress up in women's clothing, dark-skinned people with low intelligence quotients who had too many children, Jews with no practical skills that worked in academia or politics or finance, mixed-race parvenus who received too much recognition for low-effort art, and sluts. He wrote about sluts the most. He made some cursory research to support his argument, ordered a few nonfiction books online, and indulged in a little armchair philosophizing. He coined his central target of critique the ditz. The ditz is self-hypnotized, he wrote, fascinated with every quirky electrical leap of brain activity, obsessed with what is cute about itself, mocking of anyone with great ambitions, anyone who takes great burdens upon themselves. The ditz loves to capture itself in photographs, to take selfies, and this is metonymic for the whole of its personality. The ditz is enraptured by its smallness, but never excessively, always within the bounds of what is socially acceptable. The ditz is, finally, a human in its most broken form, flattened, subdued completely, all capacity for true individuation ironed out of it. His readership grew quickly in the first year. He gained financial support, was subject to multiple cancellations and attacks on his character, had his identity revealed by an anonymous party, was subsequently harassed, self-published a poorly rated but best-selling book on Amazon, and indulged in a series of short, violent relationships with men and women he met through the comment sections of his site. One of them was a 17-year-old boy who slashed open his face with a fillet knife during an argument. They had disagreed about the beauty of a foreign actress. He was left with a negligible and aesthetically incoherent scar. He would glance at himself in the mirror across his room months after recovering and become annoyed that he didn't look like a war criminal. Feeling jaded about his writing once again, he announced a hiatus of undetermined length and left the city to visit his younger sibling, Leon. They were a hyper-intelligent AMAB non-binary who was invited to join a queer rationalist colony and work as a designer after receiving widespread praise for comics posted to the social media site Facebook, featuring cute animals engaged in carnivalesque scenes intended to satirize gifted kid burnout culture. They began to argue about religion. The perennialist position is that divinity transcends all particular religions, Leon explained, and I hold this to be basically true. Meta-religion is a more recent formulation of the same idea within the firmer tenets of rationalism and computational model theory. God, or the absolute, is an unbounded entity that is participating in self-simulation. Its capacity for self-determination is reflected through all its manifestations, and therefore we are responsible for every action we take. We all have an imprint of this divine image, though some realize it better than others, depending on a variety of complex factors, not the least being what we call intelligence. I don't really see that, but yeah, he said, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. He was remembering his fourth grade teacher who approached him from behind as he read aloud at a group table with ridiculous speed to make the other kids laugh and laid her hand on his shoulder. He remembered saying, "Sorry, I'm stupid," to which she gently replied, "Yes, you are." She would sit with her feet on her desk sulking like a teenager and bark, "What?" when he approached with a question about an assignment. Near the end of the year, she forced him to sit in the library and write an essay where he came up with reasons for why his disruptive behavior was stupid and wrong. She kept walking in and out to check if anyone was coming. His parents confronted the principal about her behavior, upon which she was brought in and admitted to treating the boys worse than the girls, but nothing ultimately happened because she was protected by a teachers' union. The next year, she would glare at him from across the playground, and a tall Asian kid who was already learning to paint tigers like the old masters told him that he shouldn't have given her such a hard time. Other memories of school flicked in his mind's eye, one of them being a day he approached some children playing soccer on the field during recess and decided to kick the ball in an attempt to join their game, but it flew straight into the crotch of the youngest child there, and they all charged at him. He remembered that he scored marginally above average on the SATs after attending over 40 hours of paid prep sessions. "What are people supposed to do if they're stupid?" he asked. "What do you mean exactly?" Leon replied. "If they aren't smart enough to replicate this image of God, if they're extremely flawed vessels, what are they supposed to do? They are supposed to do what everyone else is supposed to do, take responsibility for their actions and strive to keep their sights on God. As soon as someone turns away from God, their whole world becomes dark, and they can only blame themselves afterwards. That someone suffers does not give them an excuse to reject God. We are meant to suffer responsibly in our very thoughts or deeds. This is one of the things I came to realize when I was drawing the March of the Webbed Feet. Every religious tradition with a trace of divine rationalism teaches compassion, but it was in a completely different sense than the compassion of the debased modern world, which is now mixed with a satanic parody of the Christian virtue of forgiveness. Shit, he thought. What was it, he asked. It was what I might call the mercy of punishment. After pride comes a fall. This brings grace. If people want to be good, they need to be tortured more by God. Oh, okay. I think I see what you mean, he said. He wondered how being tortured by God could make someone more intelligent. He considered asking, but let the opportunity slide for some reason. Leon was called into another room. He investigated his surroundings. Leon had maybe 15 books on his shelf, a clean desk with a lamp and a laptop, and a small cot. He ran his finger along the scar on his face and closed his eyes. Leon came back in and asked him how he got it, sounding like they had been waiting for the right moment. "Accident," was all he said. "Terrible," Leon replied, with a look of genuine pity. They explained that some friends of theirs at the colony had microdosed LSD, a hobby they now abstained from, and were going to visit the state arboretum. They asked if he wanted to join. He consented. He trekked over dead leaves. The other rationalists had split off. He kept his gaze on his feet for a while. "They're going to play in the trees," Leon said, and laughed. He didn't understand. "Come with me," they said. He followed without paying much attention, stumbling as they diverted from the main path. They came to a glade with a septic tank access near the edge. A dark clay mold lay upon the lid, which was stained all over with something that resembled chewing tobacco residue. "I left this here," Leon said. They gave it to him. He examined it more closely. The mold was pressed with interlocking serpentine shapes. "This is the altar," Leon explained, where the void in nature is reintegrated and absolved of its profane qualities. "Like a baptism," he asked. "Those beasts who flee from the sun, maybe you feel yourself one of them. Here they are made anew." He met Leon's eyes. The sound of the others playing in the trees grew closer. "Wow, they're getting pretty youth-coded today," Leon said, looking away. Something crunched under his sneaker. He squinted at the ground. There were small bones littered everywhere around the septic tank. "What are these from?" he asked. Leon did not respond. They had walked to the tree line. One of their friends was reaching down from a large branch, grinning ear to ear, and grabbing a piece of fruit that Leon had stretched out in their hand. He politely refused to stay at the colony. He drove back to his apartment late at night, arriving about 1 a.m. He couldn't sleep, so he turned on his computer and started scrolling through the new comments on his blog. He read someone who sounded like a man telling him he was a weak bitch and should kill himself. Someone who also sounded like a man telling him he was an idiot because anyone who wasn't an idiot could easily make $5,000 a month from home with imagination and drive. Someone who sounded like a teenager saying, "Yep, and you know why this dude is so fucked up when he lives like this." And a few other confused people trying to cut into his soul with as little effort as possible, emulating the kind of passing insults the cruel reserve for vagrants. He nervously swiveled his chair left to right, reading with a blank expression, let out a sigh, then turned off his computer and went to the kitchen to crack open a beer. He threw himself on his mattress and started to make funny voices because he was drunk. He made some racial caricatures where he mocked Leon's theories. He kept repeating phrases in more exaggerated accents and making noises by blowing air through his lips, but couldn't get himself to laugh. He rolled on his side and closed his eyes. A buzzing in his head kept him awake. He got out of bed, grabbed his unfinished beer, and went to the bathroom. He lowered the lid on the toilet and sat down. Where am I going to go? He kept thinking. He couldn't get comfortable on the toilet seat, so he laid down in the bathtub. It started to nod off, the yellow haze blanketing him. He wanted to come up with something that would tell Leon off in his head. He eventually decided that he didn't care. Everything he heard was turning to soup now, anyways. There's nowhere for me to go, he thought. He glanced around at the dingy bathroom for a moment before he finally lost consciousness. Maybe I like it here, he thought. He wasn't sure. The morning was cold. He jerked off into the sink, stimulating himself with his right hand and holding his phone with the other so he could watch a short clip of multiple men ejaculating on a woman's face in succession, a sexual practice referred to as bukkake, a Japanese word meaning to splash, originating in Japanese hardcore pornography and later emulated in Western hardcore pornography, which he was viewing for free on an adult video sharing site. This was one of his favorite genres of hardcore pornography. Though he didn't consider himself as having invested hardcore pornography thoroughly, nor did he even want to, it was only something he found online during his preteen years and became fixated on. He may have enjoyed the anonymity of mentally inserting himself as one of the ejaculators, merely a contributor, brought on for a fraction of the starlet's pay, but given the additional benefit of participating and neutral male camaraderie afterwards. Just one of the guys, perhaps making some new friends. His semen didn't shoot far, collecting near the overflow hole with the last few jolts and remaining partly in his urethra. He cleaned it with a disinfectant wipe and washed his hands. He checked his phone and found a message from a girl he met during one of his attempts to finish university. He had attempted 3 times. The message linked to a scene from a procedural crime drama where a serial killer caught from his hateful online posts defended himself during interrogation. The hard-nosed cop slammed his fist on a metal table and insulted the killer, calling him a loser and so on, while the kind female cop stood against the one-way mirror with her arms crossed. The killer broke into a monologue that he felt was corny and made him turn the video off. He wondered how fat the screenwriter for this episode was. "What is this?" he replied absent-mindedly. "Thought it was funny," she sent back a few minutes later. They had never slept together. He did not think she ever planned to. She invited him to another visualization session in the afternoon. He joined her once at these sessions months ago. He decided to go again. They wanted him to project into his future. They sat circular in a study room at a local community college where he had enrolled on and off. The girl who invited him was to his right. He made a mental note of how unattractive the people in the room were and concluded that this was how they came to terms with it. The guide of the visualization group told everyone to close their eyes and picture exactly what they would be doing and where, if they lived as their most ideal self. He complied indifferently and looked into the darkness behind his eyelids. He racked his brain, trying to gather up fragments of positive feelings he remembered having that might coalesce into an aspiration, but they flowed away and disappeared. He couldn't think of anything. He came up against an emptiness that seemed impenetrable. Panicking, he tried to imagine something simple, like a 3-dimensional shape rotating. He saw a square skewing and flitting away into blotches of blue and black. He couldn't keep it in his mind. He felt his heart beating heavily. The girl, sensing his tension, laid her hand on his arm, and he slapped it away with a hypnic jerk. He collapsed on the floor. The doctors told him there was a hole in his brain. It was getting larger, engulfing more and more gray matter, replacing it with darkness as shown on the MRI. They didn't think it was cancer. They couldn't identify it as any known degenerative brain diseases. Apart from the fainting, he was fine, though confused and at a loss for words. They kept him for a night, asking many questions that he couldn't make up answers to. Then his mother showed up and yelled at all of them like they were idiots. He felt the need to come to their defense, something about how they were just doing their job, but he didn't, and she took him home. A couple days later, he went back to his place. The first thing he noticed was that his head felt lighter. This made him feel more agile, and he found himself standing up straight for longer. He didn't smile more. There was nothing joyful about it. He walked back and forth in his apartment, tracing a rut, and felt like he was levitating the longer he did it. He tried to nap, but the darkness in his head was stronger and more frightening. It gave him vertigo the longer he stared into it. When he did fall asleep, it passed in what felt like seconds, and he remembered nothing. He made a final update on his blog where he explained his condition and that he didn't expect to live much longer. It was concise, lacking any of the poetic fury of his earlier work. Some people called him gay, some people said he was lying, and some people gave him effusive praise and expressions of grief that made him want to hurt them. He changed his password to a long string of random characters, changed his email to a fake address that would expire in a day, and logged off. He called the girl and tried to convince her to have sex with him. I'm probably going to die, he said. And she said that was true before. He paused and took a more serious tone. I've been waiting to say this until now because I have no more time. I'm in love with you, he said. And she laughed and told him to shut the fuck up. She eventually agreed to come over and take care of him. They both got increasingly drunk and decided to experiment in bed, but in a way that felt like a joke. As he jabbed himself inside of her, he struggled to stay aroused. He had experienced this difficulty the few other times he had sex. He could get himself going, but he couldn't finish unless he thought about pornography. He tried to do it again, looking slightly away from her face toward the corner of his headboard. Nothing appeared in his mind. He strained to see the distorted fisheye lens perspectives of buttocks that he had pleasured himself to thousands of times. They were no longer there. He pulled out and lay on his back, staring at the ceiling. She felt bad for him more than she ever had before. They uttered soft bits of embarrassment. Are you okay? Yeah, it's all right. Forget about it. What do you want to do? He sat upright, startling her, and clutched his knees for a while. He tried to stand but lost his balance. He vomited all over her. It took him a week to get the nurses to understand what he wanted in his room. He had almost lost the capacity to describe it to them. A thing you look into, he kept saying. They would ask if he meant the window and say he already had 2 of them. No, he would say, shaking his head. They would ask if he meant the television, and he would wave his hand away, indicating that he wanted to be left alone. On Sunday, a cleaning man came by with the thing he wanted hanging off his cart. He couldn't speak much by then and had to gesticulate and point like a child to get his attention. He finally hung the object on the wall opposite his bed. It was a little off to the right of his face, but he didn't mind. It was a hand mirror. He could see himself all the time now. He speculated about the scar on his face, which he had lost memory of. He rotated his head left and right, assessing his jawline and other features, keeping his eyes on the oval holding his image, the only means of judging himself. I'd say I'm a 5, he thought. That's it.
Holy fucking shit. That blew me away. I think sometimes like a piece comes along and you're just in the right frame of mind to hear it. You know? But that was tremendous. I really like, I'm a huge fan of that kind of like, those kind of like existential character studies, and the modern twist that you put on it feels way more real than a lot of other attempts that I've heard to grapple with like the phenomenon of like the extremely online type. Like you really got the extremely online underground man down to science here.
Did you know what the title? It's a slang term from incel forums. It means
really?
someone who,
No,
yeah, it means someone who has a normal sex life but pretends to be incel online in order to get pity.
Oh wow! Holy shit! That's perfect.
That's a real term, William?
Yeah, it's used on those forums.
Oh, crazy! That's a great. I thought that was a great title.
That incredible. This is going to be published in Expat. You told me, right?
Yeah.
That I'm looking forward to it. Holy shit!
Thank you.
No, that was tremendous. Thank you so much, William. Off to It's gonna be. I hope everyone else brought their A game tonight. It's gonna be hard to top that. Or maybe I was just exactly the right kind of depressed for that to like really hit me. Anyway, next up, Dan isn't here yet. Gianluca is up next.
Hey, what's up, everybody? How's it going?
Not bad. How are you
Alright.
doing?
I'm doing all right. Yeah. Okay. So I guess, yeah. I guess this is kind of just something I was compelled to write just because I felt like I had been uh, afflicted with a profound lack of imagination, and so I wanted to articulate what I think one should look for in art. I don't know, or I don't know. Never mind. I'll read it, and hopefully you'll get what I'm trying to do, or maybe not. I'm sorry. I apologize. Anyway, okay. So it's
No,
called
don't
Glaze.
apologize. Your last Substack post was brilliant. I'm looking forward to this one.
Okay, thank you. Uh, this one's called Glazers: The Fall, Geocopolis Mainstream, The Fictional Nature of the Self, Anti-Adaptation and Anti-Symbol, Contact with the Sublime, and the Role of Interpretation in Beauty. There are two fundamental components to appreciation of art: beauty and interpretation. Khalil Gibran, in the spiritual book of poetry, The Prophet, described beauty as a context-based ecstasy, and that which persists even when one does not perceive it, or rather, something one perceives even when not perceiving, but rather an image you see though you close your eyes, and a song you hear though you close your ears. In a sense, beauty is the meaning beyond meaning, or even intuitive meaning. You don't know what it is, but it compels you and speaks more deeply to you than if someone had just told you straight up, God is over your shoulder, but don't look now, for he might disappear. Beauty rests in the sublime, in the Virgin Mary, in that which resonates, but also within the unknown variable, the X, the signifier which refers to an unknown, non-existent, or unknowable signifier. That should say signified, fuck, okay. Unknown, non-existent, or unknowable signifier. Shit, that signified. Fuck. Signified. As an example of this exists in this Jim Belushi tweet. Every time I watch the sunrise, I think of Tupac. We once watched the sunrise together after a long night. It was quiet for a second. Then he looked at me and said, "I'm a thug. I prefer the sunrise." I really don't know what that means, but I still live by it to this day. Tupac's cryptic phrase acts as the unknown variable. What does it mean to be a thug in this context? Why do thugs prefer the sunrise? Now, one could interpret this in multiple ways. Perhaps thugs work harder over a longer period of time, and so are among the few who can appreciate the unique beauty of the sunrise. Or perhaps the experience of thugs and ordinary people are so far apart that they find the opposite movements of the sun beautiful. In a sense, the pinnacle of celestial beauty occurs at opposite ends of the day. However, the pleasure is in not knowing. Both of these interpretations are equally plausible. They could also both be wrong. The core of this phrase is Tupac's simple appreciation of the sunrise combined with his self-identification as thug. From this core created through two powerful elements that themselves could spin out into multiple ideas, combining, a powerful piece of poetry is created. This is beauty, or at least one aspect of artistic beauty manifesting itself. Beauty also acts as the foundation of any aesthetic. Creating a fully logical aesthetic, artistic ethos, is, I feel, a fool's errand. You will reach a conclusion like it will provoke thought, but the angel of rationality will, like a child wanting to know you how to give up. His approach to art rests on an aesthetic bedrock, or is instead made of logic turtles all the way down. The last bastion of beauty or art is eroticism.
Oh, I think you just. I think you. Did you drop?
Sorry,
Ian?
sorry.
No problem.
I apologize fulsomely.
That's fine. The last thing I heard was bedrock of the bastion of beauty or art for art's sake is eroticism. That's where.
Okay, thank you. Thank you
Yep, no
very much.
problem.
Every single emotional reaction has to be intellectually justified. Why was this piece weird? Why was this piece sad? Why was this piece happy? The answer often lies within the work, and yet people are not willing to investigate. Still, there is the why, as if sadness or happiness or confusion or laughter are not valuable enough on their own. And yet, no one ever says, why was this work of art horny? They simply say to themselves, because the director had a boner. That itself is a reductive way of looking at things. People say there is some nuance between what counts as porn and art. No, there is a ton of nuance. People nowadays say objectification is some kind. I say the world could do with a bit more objectification, a bit more unabashed sexuality. We have the violence, we have the gore, we have the nihilism and the Satanism, but there is still the last shred of moralism regarding sex. There are still people who have trouble taking a work seriously if a character too sexually dressed. Tone mandated by sexuality, two unrelated attributes bound together by an unwillingness to say more gazes, not just an abundance of male gazes, but female gazes, and gay gazes, and lesbian gazes, and non-binary gazes, and just about every gaze imaginable. Let us look upon one another with pride. Let us cuddle and tell stories and say nothing at all. For shame. In fact, Sontag says in her essay Against Interpretation that in place of hermeneutics, we need an erotics of art, further cementing the connection between art's capacity to convey meaning beyond meaning and eroticism. Interpretation is necessary to art's beauty. A scene with a tank's power comes from our recognition that this set of pixels represents the object tank. And so there are a series of associations with that object that are coupled with the film's choices in depicting such a tank, a synthesis not unlike Tupac's Sunrise Appreciation. Now, this is not interpretation in the manner Sontag means. We'll get to that later. But it does demonstrate that we only feel the things we do when confronted with overwhelming spiritual forces because of logical associations. Interpretation may rest on beauty, but beauty also rests on interpretation. Twitter user George Prestructural once tweeted, "The Cremaster cycle is incredible because it makes your sick realize you have to stop the 15-year-old boy find the meaning shit and just appreciate the sublime artistic vision on display." This tweet makes sense to me. Art may necessarily be symbolic in that everything that exists represents itself, but is the pursuit of one concrete definable meaning desirable in and of itself? Sontag describes the interpretation as an act of translation done to make the work more palatable or to adapt it to a contemporary moral framework. This can be seen when one engages with a symbolic work and throughout end up reconstructing a literal reality through those symbols, thus attention to what something is and what something means. Sontag references the root features of Greek gods being allegorized into something more acceptable. Now I believe that heroic characters that are championed for reasons not compatible with the dominant contemporary morality are a useful tool in audience alienation. They act as a riddle to an audience. Why am I expected to root for this character? What does it say about me that I find this character so disagreeable? This goes beyond simply an anti-hero where the flaws are excused, rationalized, or acknowledged. Here, the hero functions as a moral counterclaim. How literally you take a story will always influence how likable a character is. Perhaps we should turn and say, yes, our hero is an asshole. What of it? I find both allegory and rude reality, literalism, compelling. An allegory would never be as compelling without the visceral ugliness underpinning it. A whirlwind of doubled over agony, wailing misery, self-perpetuating suffering. Of course, maybe we can leave questions of heroism out of it. Maybe the gods are simply flawed. That would itself be a logical explanation for the world's idiosyncrasies. Perhaps what we regard as emotive responses are simply subconscious recognitions of a story's core premise. Kafka's Metamorphosis is fundamentally about how people treat non-standard behavior and how weak interpersonal bonds are. From this, many more specific interpretations can be taken. And again, would the story be less valuable if this core were not there? Would the story's expression of ugliness, self-hatred, and despair not be enough? Much like when you squint like a piglet at some abstract painting, trying to see some pattern, I ask myself, what would I gain if this were, in fact, a chair or a horse or a tree? Nothing, nothing at all. In fact, value would be taken away. So why am I engaged in this exercise? Whereas before I would be overwhelmed by a shade of blue or some shit, now I simply stare blankly. Still, I see the value in abstract painting. To me, they represent the place the mind goes when it meditates, a place beyond physicality in reference to the physical world. To me, art that puts forward a single definite moral thesis should always be less interesting than work that, like life, suggests multiple. The primary moral benefit of art is increased empathy towards points of view that are not your own. Art has subtly suggested my views, certainly, but political, philosophical, and spiritual works have overall impacted my views in a far more noticeable manner. Art can be incredibly good at moral instruction. Take biblical parable, for instance. A danger with interpretation is treating art like a Rubik's Cube to be solved and discarded. Take YouTube media analysts, for example. You see something strange, you look it up, and some asshole explains their interpretation to you. No more need to think. In that sense, interpretation is used as a license to stop thinking about the work, or rather to not think about the work. Now the work is one thing rather than multiple or infinite things, and so you now know what to feel. Confusion eliminated. Art should disrupt linear thought patterns, and through their theses, expressions, prompt us to question the hierarchies that shape our thought process and bring us into contact with the sublime. The sublime is pure uncut beauty, meaning beyond meaning. In other words, to stare into the face of God. If you view art purely as self-improvement, you end up viewing the art in terms of what it has to give to you. But you can also give to the art in form of worship. There is beauty in the unknown variable. Not everything needs to be resolved. What separates political theory, philosophical texts, and spiritual texts from art? Not much, especially considering examples that blur the lines, such as theory fiction. Prophet is undoubtedly a spiritual text. I would consider that of a work of art, as I would the Bible. I suppose they occupy a subset of art that differentiates itself by being more directly an instruction manual for how to be a good person. They worship the unknown variable, the unknowable beauty, but build off to create a comprehensible series of rules. Even if there is controversy, everyone knows what they're fighting about, although that itself might be a naive or reductive statement. Still, I believe art has a unique power to communicate the uncommunicable and convey meaning beyond meaning, be it an abstract core that can spread out into more specific ideas or a series of symbols that interrelate. You may call it romanticism, but in a way I could go further. Art is a psychic connection. That much is evident. Separating art from the artist is an ugly exercise. Why would you want to reduce cinema to a series of inert images rather than what it is, a replication of someone's emotional landscape? People use it as defense of enjoying art made by less than morally perfect people. I ask them, why are you so concerned with being morally superior to the person you are conversing with? Names also create psychic connections. Anti-adaptation is what I like to call the practice of adapting a property but changing it so radically that it appears to have no connection to the source material. People tend to refer to such adaptations as in name only. Examples of this include Richard Kelly's unused Holes script, Death Note 2017, Day of the Dead 2008, and House of Wax 2005. In that sense, the name creates a spiritual connection. All of these works take the general premise of the original works, for example, Notebook that kills people, Summer Camp where children dig in the desert, but it executes such premises in a fundamentally different manner. I would argue this is a far more productive practice than what we usually think of as adaptation. Why do we need to hold ourselves to the outline of the original and slavishly dedicate ourselves to recreating its tone and plot? Why must every fan have their work represented on the big screen? For what reason? So they won't have to read? The work is already there. Let's take its core and make something different. 2005's House of Wax features many shots of things coming right at the camera in homage to the 1953 original. And so this demonstrates that changing the work into something unrecognizable isolates what the adapter thinks is important. Part of the cinematic identity / legacy lives on in the remake. This connection would not be made if it weren't for the spiritual connection enabled by the title. Synchronicities appear, intentional or not. This is one of the unique potentials of fan fiction as an avenue for adapting whatever you want, regardless of copyright. Unfortunately, most fan fiction is written by fans, so this potential isn't fully utilized. Anti-symbols are symbols put in not to communicate something specific, but instead because of intuition or atmosphere or some other undefinable factor. Most symbols have singular intended meaning and usually a fairly obvious one. However, the anti-symbol could be read 1,000 different ways, which placed there due to the intuition, emotion, or subconscious logic of the artist. In that sense, the anti-symbol is more spontaneous, immediate, and personal. Perhaps interpretation could be, as Sontag argues, a replacement for mimesis. However, I would argue that interpretation in terms of emotional reality rather than concrete concepts that exist in the outside world help us better understand why symbols and myth affect us the way they do. The Cremaster movies excellently blur the line between ritual, performance art, theater, and film. The plot is subsumed by symbols. Characters are more pieces of an extended ritual than characters in the traditional sense, although this raises the question of the difference between a story and an extended ritual. I would argue that worship of the X, piercing the logical veil, infinite symbol, and concrete interpretation can and should coexist so the two can play off of one another, so long as one is not privileged. That is, one should not reconstruct a literal narrative, but relation to concrete concepts is important not just for moral instruction, but for descriptive statements and philosophical inquiry. And in terms of emotional reality, interpretation is beneficial as and interrogating one's own reaction is a crucial part of engaging with art. Jonathan Glazer's The Fall wonderfully illustrates the interrelation between beauty and interpretation. It is a simple story about a man who was punished for an unspecified crime and hung down a very long well. However, he manages to stop his descent and free himself from his noose. He climbs back up the well. Too many interpretations occur to me. On one hand, it could be the sadistic pleasure we take in punitive justice. The ascent seems impossible, and one could very well assume the criminal will tire and drop to the bottom of the well, dying. Other one could apply a biblical framework to the story, and so the criminal becomes Lucifer, the fallen angel. In that case, his return signals the apocalypse and his revenge upon his executioners. Now, here comes the beauty. The masks worn by the actors distance us from their performers. They remove facial acting from the equation, so the actors are reduced to roles, or rather, social roles in a sense. Their emotional state is symbolically represented rather than naturalistically so. The static nature of the outward emotional state renders them animalistic. This heightens the desperation of the criminal and the ugly triumphalism of the mob. Beauty represents the core, whereas interpretation simply provides framework with which to view the work. The writings of the CCRU point to several of their contributors being fictional. That is, they are living beings who perceive or have thoughts presumably, but realize they may not be those things. They may in fact simply be ideas. Sometimes I think about the extent to which I am fictional. Our thoughts may be written by others. We are composed of our thoughts, our memories, and our identities. Only one of these are directly attributable in terms of control to the thing we call self. Does this have much impact on our day-to-day lives? No, not necessarily, but then few important things do. It appears that everything we are manifests as a thin pattern of ideas surrounding nothing at all. A movie that interestingly articulates the idea of someone who's fictional to their very core and consequently manages to create a fictional universe within the real one is Gia Coppola's Mainstream. His name, Link, refers to an artificial construct that only exists to refer to something else. However, this link has no defined destination reference point. Mainstream demonstrates the virtue of complication or contradiction, whereas AGR's contradiction allows for them to be open to interpretation. Mainstream is less inscrutable in its use of contradiction. Perhaps one should use undermining rather than contradiction when referring to something like mainstream. It dissolves the phone bad, phone good binary by outlining the futility of critique in a social media landscape. Critique must exist within the space it is critiquing, otherwise no one will listen. Critique within a space will necessarily be subsumed into the operation of said space, which is doubly the case in a space like social media, where content can become less important than the idea of content, while also critique by showing how Link utilizes preconceptions and cheap anti-social media, anti-artifice narrative in order to just expand his fiction and thus his self. Social media may be incompatible with art, the film says, but it also acts as an important tool for preserving people's mental health. The artifice generated by social media eases people's self-hatred and links care and instead makeup. Climactic monologue calls out the audience for allowing Link into power, and the audience accepts it due to the bias towards accepting call-outs from an artist. Acceptance rather than rejection of flawed critique safeguards the space from the responsibility of changing, and instead said critique becomes an integral part of the mainstream internet. This demonstrates the tendency to use systematic critique to abdicate individual responsibility, and through the demonstration of this tendency, the film blurs individual and systemic critique, as the acceptance of Link's shifting of blame via systemic critique is utilized by the system to perpetuate itself. The system runs on Link, not just an aspect of the system, but an integral part. The film supports Frankie's artistic ambitions, but also critiques the hollowness of her artistic practice despite her good intentions. She doesn't ever become a good artist because that's not the point. She may not be a good artist, but ultimately she realizes the ugly consequences of her art. And so the film champions art while downplaying its importance to the protagonist's emotional arc. As the fictional nature of Link becomes more and more apparent, he turns from a fictional character managed by Frankie and Jake into a real manifestation of their premise. The film critiques the artlessness of social media, yet also argues that growing as a person is more important than growing as an artist. The drive to undermine is important because it reveals the paradoxes that are inherent in every issue, much like comedy at its best does, and deconstructs the preconceptions that straight narratives rest on. The drive to undermine hints towards beauty, increases realism, and allows for much room for interpretation. The ironies are like delicious cherries made of crystalline articulation. Perhaps the ideal function of interpretation is to act as a pair of clamps to help widen the emotive canal, where if you rely too much on immediate emotion, you can risk falling into preconception regarding what counts as good cinematography or writing. With an idea to attach oneself to, you instead praise what gives you the most dopamine, and so interpretation can act as a pair of forceps clamped around the head of the deformed fetus of artistic appreciation. If you pull gently and with grace, you will be greatly rewarded. Multiplicity is beautiful. Multiplicity reflects reality of the mind. You. The fact is, your thoughts are a script written by some bastard who isn't paid enough. The fact is, everything you are. Multiplicity can allow for contradiction of mainstream values or even your own, prompting great thought. Multiplicity is the nature of God. Surely art should aspire to godliness. Yet simplicity is also the nature of God. If simplicity is one half of God, and if multiplicity is one half of God and simplicity is the other half, then a truly godly work must be simple and multiple. Thus, the fall is the godliest work of art. However, I'm more interested in the human. It should not matter to you whether you are you, as the multiplicity eats me up inside and I curl up into the fetal position, as the voices play within my mind, and surely yours. Debate with God and ascend through art. Is art moral and catalyst for thought? Prefer the latter, but is that due to cowardice? Am I lying to myself? I have my principles. But have my feelings departed from such principles? I don't want to be told what to think. I want to see the conflict of perspectives. I want to see the artist and empathize with their double or opposite. I want to see your confusion and your organs. And as the sky turns and my hole burns, the orange glow elaborates. Anyway, that's it.
Holy shit, that was amazing, man. There's so much there. Like my brain was exploding every other paragraph. So first of all, unfortunately, most fan fiction is written by fans is such an amazing line. It's so absolutely fucking true to like how fan fiction fails as an art form, right? It's not just that it's derivative. It's that it has no ability to critique the work that the like master work, right? Because it's written by people who are slavishly devoted to it. But I loved your take on abstract art. It communicated something that I've like been desperately trying to communicate to people, because like there are people, they're not gonna name names, but there are people I know who will be like, well, like non-representational art doesn't hold meaning. And it's like, that's the fucking point, right? Like that pure communication of emotion. And what you said about the artist, the like art-artist divide, I think was very astute, and also gets at something that has been bothering me, because I'm not really satisfied with either the like, obviously I hate the attempts to conflate the morality of the artist with the morality of the art, but I also I'm not comfortable with that like clean, well, you got to separate the artist from the art, and that like psychic connection line that you have there, that gets at it, right? That gets at the value of that. It doesn't discard the connection between the artist and the art, but anyway, I'm rambling. There's so much there. It's so rich. You've got so many fucking brilliant ideas popping off every other sentence, every other paragraph in there. So thank you, Gian. That was amazing.
Thank you very much.
Gabriel, you're up next.
Hey there. So in order to support my ongoing antagonistic relationship with my music, I've got a record coming out next week called Ego Jingles. I made a little zine of the lyrics.
Do you have a link
okay.
to where people can pre-order
Yeah.
the album?
Let me find that real quick.
Yeah, I should have asked for it when you signed up, but I didn't think until right now. I just want to be able to tweet it out.
Yes. Wait 1 second. Here it comes. There we go.
Awesome.
So yeah, I'm just gonna like blow through some of these really quick. First one is called Lies of Heaven. I'm trying to be a normal guy, but something will not let me. To remove myself from the myth of success that leaves me empty. It's about to get real rhymey in here. Look out. Not striving for royalty in this world of mediocrity, but the lies of heaven, they just won't let me be. Don't it make you angry when they say how blessed they are? They're fucking crazy. Like a hotel posing as a mansion, still boasting all its vacancy. You can cram every room with a crowd, still the outside looks lonely. All the lies of heaven, like the Easter bunny whose mask is off and chain smoking. I was only given one costume of skin. I already feel my blood boiling within. So don't tell me about your artistic passion when all my organs are on fire. Yes, I tried to wave to you all through the flames. You thought it was because I wanted to be saved, but I just wanted to show you that I was brave since I lit my own self on fire. I'm just trying to enjoy the ride, but what is that beneath me? I'm inclined to the fear of heights, the distance between you and me. But I'm so down to earth now that I've nearly lost my feet. All those lies of heaven make you numb with defeat and nothing left to believe in. Every philosophy is tailored to deceive. The way you can just grab any excuse you need. With all those fucking fickle articles you read, the 10 best cities gone by your arrival. I'll be the one man welcoming committee, talking to himself and cursing at everything, just coherent enough for one fleeting morning. Everybody has stopped listening. This one's called If You Only Could Have Known Me. If you only could have known me before you came into my life. I was a calm, cool visionary, nearly 20/20 hindsight, a harmless shark looking to dance with anyone who cared to deep sea dive. But you saw an artist as a con man, hooking yourself on your own jive. You, the alarmist, grabbed the wrong man, and before a trial, I was tried. If you only could have known me before you came into my life, you might have liked what you see. You might have seen that I don't bite. Before you filed down my teeth, you left my lips to crack and dry. Before I would hear you scream a litany of phantom crimes. If you only could have known me before you came into my life, what would it have taken to save me? That flash of fleeting glitch in time, where no judgment could be passed on strange emotion I'd speak or write, or my silence born from fear, and the brief intermissions between each fight, and the tighter that you tied the knot, the further the veneer shall cracken. This if now, as a matter of fact, I know very well what happened. This one's called House. How did this happen? What happens every night? I'm afraid to do anything with you because everything we do, we fight. You can't stop asking why I can't look you in the eyes. As you writhe around the floor, howling every obscenity. While my eyes are on the door, I'm pondering eternity and who I can rely on for a ride from this creepy house down the street with two people screaming inside. I've got this memory, one early Halloween. A house with no decorations for some reason left me shivering. Two silhouettes throwing things and hollering. How would I know? I was looking at the future, you and me, trapped in a decaying home, doomed to repeat history. The one time I tried to leave, you threatened suicide in this creepy house down the street with two people screaming inside. As I drew the window shade, a group of kids, they ran and hid, and I saw their little faces fill with fear. I felt stupid. How could we let this life go so awry? We become that creepy house down the street with two people screaming inside. This one's called Pure Trigger. I've got respect for words, so of course your words hurt, but you can't seem to handle anything. Who did you think I was when you claimed you were in love? A Band-Aid for your psychic wounds that wouldn't stop bleeding. Our therapist told me to run. I own the house. We're not married, have no baby. I persisted, aimed for the sun, but you cannot take the slightest bit of heat. Pure trigger. You can't be held tight without being set off. You turn our house into a rubber room when the going gets tough. I always fall in love with tough chicks. Maybe deep inside I need some discipline. But all you know how to do is talk shit. Now look at the impossible mess we're in. This was supposed to be about the language of love, possibly enjoying each other's company, not focusing on everything that you're scared of while hiding behind your absolute brutality. Pure trigger. I'm trying so hard to hold you steady, but there's no handle on your never-ending triggering. This one's called Get on My Level. I've got a vision I'm afraid you will not understand unless you take that leap with me and follow my every command. If you're still uncertain, I'll just show you how. They'll close the curtain, we'll take our bow, but time is running out, so you better get on my level now. I have risen from the dead, now look at the ground where I stand. So fertile, it could push up all the daisies from this land, but I cannot go out this alone. I need only your flesh and your bones, not a horse or a plow. Just you two get on my level now. I've got a vision I'm afraid you will not understand. Self-serving is the Bible, just as brutal as the Quran, but all those false prophets, they didn't know how. So I'm writing the true gospel now. You're disposable as a cow, so you better get on my level now. Got two more. This one's called The Come Down. You'd think I would be relieved after changing the locks and key. By law, this house belongs to me, but somehow that don't mean a thing. When I think of everything that I put up with when you finally went away, it don't make this feel like some victory day. You made sure my head was first to hit the ground. Now I'm waiting for the rest of my body to come down. She can't believe I'm so obsessed with peace. She thinks I should seek therapy. When I suggest things aren't bad as they seem, she calls it gaslighting. As she threatens to exit the earth, oh, the irony. Well, let's start with some baby steps. Let's see you exit our old white picket fence. Because tonight, I'm gonna invite over all of my cool lesbian friends. They're too wise to hide behind some blind defense. They've confirmed that woman is unsound, and they will watch over me while I finally come down. Last one. Called Another Teary-Eyed All-Nighter. Driving home in the dark and I get that sinking feeling again. Crack a beer in my lap because I know I'll need some armor within. I know I'm not coming home to fight her, but here comes another teary-eyed all-nighter. I pull into the driveway, but I'm unprepared to go inside. How long can I stall to convince myself I've got the right? I came home to abide by her, but here comes another teary-eyed all-nighter. Should I turn around and just camp out at work, where they tell me I do a good job, nurture my self-worth? But the longer I wait, the longer it will take. I have to go in, no telling what will happen, but my educated guessings inside the sinking feeling again. Freezing in the car as I begin to contemplate how many steps it takes before I will see the dam break. Why does my love for her divide her and invite another teary-eyed all-nighter? That's it.
Those were powerful. I love the style of those because, like, if you look at the language, there's like almost a like gritty kind of noir sort of darkness to them, but the form is like you're using rhymes and you're using a more like traditional form, and I think like the marriage of those two things create this sort of wonderful dissonance that makes the poems even more like unnerving. And
I appreciate that. Yeah, the rhyming thing I can't get away from. Like I think I mentioned when I was reading from my poetry book, like I wish I could just like let myself go, like a lot of good poets can, but I'm just still stuck in like that rhyming thing.
But I think it's
No,
good. I think it's good because
yeah, man, it's not a flaw. It's not a, what do they say? It's not a glitch. It's a feature. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's
That's good. That's good to hear.
your work doesn't rely on the rhyme whatsoever. You know, it's just like it's great. Yeah.
Good. That's really good to hear.
yeah, absolutely. No, I agree 100%. And I think, like I said, the rhyme, there are times when like rhyming can like make a work seem corny or something, or make it seem like like you're trying to be trad or whatever. But in this case, your use of rhyme really creates that like itchy dissonance to the poems, which
That's kind of, yeah, that's good to hear.
complements the
Yeah.
the themes, right?
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on.
Thank you, Gabriel. It's great.
Thank you.
Wow, yeah, I just want to say there's a few lines in that Pure Trigger poem that I really like. The Rubber Room one was real powerful shit. And
Thank you.
I just wonder, how did you do the zine for it, the lyric scene? First of all, that's a really great idea. I love that.
I just did it all today. Like I just typed it out, and I kind of wanted it to look a little like dirty. So I just like used Scotch tape to kind of put everything on there, and then I actually buried it in dirt.
Okay.
So the Scotch tape would kind of pop a little bit.
Oh wow,
Then-
yeah. No, I
and
saw
then
that on Twitter earlier. I was really impressed by that.
Yeah, and then I just went, like I kind of wanted it to look like an old punk zine or something.
Cool.
Yeah, and then I just told them to like blow it out, high contrast at the copy shop. So
Oh,
I'm
gotcha.
stuck out from that.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome. Awesome work. And I just want to say that Get On My Level is now my LOL music soundtrack, my pregame. So that's a phenomenal one. I'm going to be listening to that on repeat for a while.
It's funny. It's like that's like the prettiest song on the record, but it's like has the most brutal lyrics.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
Thank you so much, Gabriel. Brandon is up next with what I'm sure will be a piece of uplifting Father's Day fiction about how much he loves his dad.
There we go. Sorry about that. Hit the mute button on the side of my headphones for a change. Just got to get into character for a second here. So yeah, as the post said, Father's Day is Sunday. So yeah, here's a little something. Hello, doctor. I'm new to this whole virtual therapy thing, so I hope you'll bear with me. As we've discussed via email, I'm not much for interacting with people, or I probably would have tried therapy in person long before now. I know you said you prefer to let your patients do all the talking for the first session, and given my difficulties, I figured I would write up what I wanted to go into so that it'd be a bit easier for me to open up without getting too sidetracked. I know you said not to do that, but the whole point of this is to get me to where I don't feel like I need to close myself off. That's why I've got the lights off, too. I know it's guarded behavior, but right now I need it. Hopefully we'll get past that. Things have been bad lately. I don't think that I've left my property in the last 8 months. I'm collecting disability, right? Between the arthritis and the social anxiety, I just can't handle working. The winter is the worst. My bones just ache constantly, and the pain makes being around people so much worse. This whole contact-free delivery trend has been great for that, so it's not like I've gone without anything that I need. I can't keep going like this. I'm going a little stir crazy. It's just a figure of speech, right? I don't want you to think that I think I'm crazy. I know that's an unhealthy mindset to enter therapy with, even though I know that therapy itself is meant as a treatment for being unhealthy. I'm rambling. Sorry. Here goes. My father made me this way. He's the reason that I am who I am. He's the reason that I am what I am. He's the reason that I can never be any other way, no matter what I do, no matter how hard I try to change, no matter how much I wish it wasn't true. My father made me this way. I know it sounds so fucking Freudian, but it's true. He didn't raise me, but he helped give me life. And I guess I should be grateful for that, but it's all just resentment. He wasn't around. I think a lot of my issues go back to that. I never really had any role models to look up to, no one to really help me learn how to be a person. I'm anticipating you wanting me to elaborate on that last bit. I don't feel like a person most times. I feel like a thing. That's part of why I don't feel comfortable around people. I feel like I'm just playing at being a person and they're the real deal. I feel like I'm just some slapped together mockery of everything that they are, and they'll never be anything more than that. And I guess that's why I'm really here, to get help to feel like a person instead of a thing. I don't know how to change that though. Feeling like a thing is a hard habit to break when every time I look in the mirror, that's all I can see. Being a person feels like I'm wearing a costume. I didn't really have anyone around me to help me become a person, though. My mother wasn't in the picture. She died the day I was brought into this world. And my father was wrapped up in his work and didn't have any time for me when he was home. His assistant was there, but he was one of those eccentric types that wasn't really much of a person either. And I guess I knew him better than I did my father. He wasn't good around people. He had this spinal condition that made him hunch over and made him walk with a dragging foot, and made his left arm kind of lame, so he had to keep it crooked up under his side. But he was smart. So my father paid him to keep up with the books and help him with a few projects in his workshop that didn't require a lot of labor. And he never talked much, but at least he was there. And he died in the house fire that killed my father. I had sneaked out to walk by the river. Came back to see the smoke. I tried to get inside to help them, but I couldn't. Got some nasty burns in the effort. Most of my right arm, got them out of my torso. I've been pretty much on my own since then. Never really learned how to form connections with people, so it's been tough. And I've only met a few that bother to let me get close to them, but it seems like every time I do, part of that person costume breaks down and I wind up back at square one. That's part of the learning process, though, I suppose. You put yourself out there, you try to make connections, and when they fail, you just learn what works and what doesn't. The problem is, at least for me, that since it always falls apart when I feel that person costume breaking down, I try to replace what broke with something from the person I just lost. It feels like some kind of disconnect every time. It feels like I'm trying to be a person, but I'm so bad at it that I try to be a different person every time that I have to start over. Or like I'm some kind of piecemeal facsimile of a real person with no real spark of my own. Even the things that I've learned over the years, I feel like it isn't mine to know if I haven't experienced it myself. It's just borrowed knowledge, shit I've memorized and learned to repeat. It's not me, it's not real. If I don't experience it, it's just theory, right? I can't prove it. I can't say that I learned it by doing it. I can only say that I read about it or I was told about it. It's all secondhand. Just like the parts of me that I've tried to use from other real people to try to fix the parts of me that are broken. They're not mine. They're not me. That's an awful feeling, Doc. Scars don't help matters. I feel like that's a big part of what's holding me back from even trying. I've had a lot of surgeries over the years. I used to have a hair lip too, but I got that fixed. Mostly. I know it isn't as visible as I think it is, but I've seen the stares from children and the elderly. Stares that make me feel like a freak, like some kind of monster. That's not the only scar people can see. There's one running up over my left eyebrow. That one was an accident. Wooden beam cropped me across the face, split me wide open. Stitches were a little rushed. It's a jagged one. I've had a few of those kinds of accidents. I guess it comes with being a reclusive survivalist. You run the risk of getting hurt doing a lot of things out here. Took a few online medical courses to help with that, though. I've had to do a lot of stitches on myself. They've all scarred. I know that doesn't help with the arthritis, and the arthritis doesn't help me take care of the new accidents. I just don't know any other way. The internet has been a huge help for getting supplies and helping me stay connected to the world, but it's not like I can make friends with the internet. I don't do social media well. I get the same feeling that I get in person when I try. just a thing, not a real person. No one makes a connection with a thing, and I can't not be a thing without making a connection that makes me think maybe I could become a person. So that's the end of what I had prepared. I don't really know if you can help me. I'm just a broken thing living out in the woods in a house that I repaired after the fire that killed my father. But I know that I have to try. I have to try to fix this, because if I don't, the parts of me that are broken now are just going to get worse. That's going to break down the rest of me. And I don't know how long this can keep going before it breaks down the last parts of me that are left. I've got to try. You were right about this whole talking out what's bothering me thing, easing some of the anxiety. I've never told anyone some of that stuff. It feels good, I guess. But I just heard the buzzer at my drop box at the road entrance. Must be a delivery. I ordered some temperature sensitive stuff, so I really need to go and get that, and it'll take a while. Can we pick this up next session? Thanks, Doc.
That was good. I love the idea of like Frankenstein's monster doing teletherapy. It's a great concept, and I also like a lot of your previous stories. Often, it's very explicitly clear at the end, like what the twist is. Like the genre elements kind of insert themselves at the end, and people say, "Oh, this one, it's layered throughout in a way that like you leave it feeling like, well, is this guy Frankenstein's monster, or is he just some sad loser who's had a hard life?" And I think like that, the tension there, and the fact that you don't resolve that tension is good. I think it actually improves the piece. And so yeah, no, that was awesome, man.
Thanks.
Next up is Rudy.
Yo.
Quick question, Rudy. You included in this thing a picture to tweet out. Do you want me to attach the image to the tweet then, as opposed to?
Oh yeah, if you just want to download the image and just okay, that's fine. Yeah, either way. But yeah, that's probably easier to do, I think.
It might display better on Twitter is all I'm thinking.
Yeah, with their new rules about the display, I'm not sure how that works now, but either way. So this is a piece I wrote actually for a game jam, and then got really pissed off at myself and at the people. I don't know, the way I imagine the people running the game jam, where for the Free Palestine game jam, I'm not gonna belabor it, but I don't know, I just had a lot of feels about like stuff, so I wrote this game and then I didn't submit it because I got really upset. So yeah, but this is the link to it right here. I think, yeah, that's the right link, I believe. All right, cool. This game is called Elevation. It is a role-playing game for 2 players. People from Gaza have launched an incendiary balloon. Prevailing winds from the Mediterranean now carry it inland into Israel. One player is the balloon. The other is its payload, an explosive device. To play, you need a timer and a balloon filled with helium. What message came printed on the balloon's latex? Is it, "I love you, happy birthday," something else? Balloon. You resent the payload somewhat because it tethers you to Earth. Who knows how high you could soar without it? Payload. You can feel the balloon's resentment and it irks you. Without you, the people never would have filled it with the life-giving helium. The people who launched you have hopes for you. And you are people in your own right. For 13 minutes, you ascend at a rate of 100 feet every minute. Talk during your ascent. Explore one another's beliefs. What do you think about the conflict? Talk about things that are beneath you. Talk about what is above. Whenever you speak, always mind your elevation. Is killing a child beneath you? At 1,000 feet up, it is. Reach Apogee, 1,300 feet above the ground after 13 minutes. You look down at the cities of people, at forests, at fields, as the gentle breeze blows you. At Apogee, decide on a location, such as a city, that you've drifted into. Helium is a wondrous chemical, powering many devices that people use, like MRI machines. Both of you know that when the helium is depleted, you will be more or less objects under the power of gravity and not conscious beings with the ability to reflect. After 5 minutes of hovering at blissful apogee, descend at a rate of 100 feet every minute. Every minute, both players should open the balloon and inhale some of its helium, then continue to converse as their characters. Again, mind your elevation. Constantly reassess what is above and below. When the helium runs out, or when neither player can keep a straight face, say where the balloon has wound up and what people loiter nearby, if any. Say the slogan printed on the balloon. Explode. That's it.
I love this. I love this.
That was awesome.
Is it too late to submit it to the jam?
No, the jam is still going on. It actually just started a day ago or so.
You need to submit this because I really want to see how they respond to it, because this is a vicious satire of exactly that kind of jam. And
yeah, I mean, just to give some background on the jam, I don't want to belabor it, but just to give some background, it's a jam called the Free Palestine Game Jam. I think it's mostly geared around like serious games by the academic definition, which is essentially games for like an activist cause or a serious political cause, or some game, you know, also like a simulation for like a government organization or something like that. Those are serious games. But I don't know if all of them are going to be serious games, but the idea of the jam is to make a game in solidarity with Palestine, essentially. That's on their page. I can link to the jam later, but and when I went to the page, I saw first that there's not really any I mean, I'm not trying to nitpick everybody's shit here or whatever. There's no real like images of like real, first of all, there's no real pictures of anything from Palestine on the page. It's just kind of like artwork and stuff. That I don't know. The way it seems like they would ban my game, or they would give me some shit for, and maybe I'm just imagining that, but it seems like they might have some issues with the game. So I didn't submit it. I thought twice and didn't submit it because I thought, you know, I don't want to make any trouble for it. I don't want to make any, you know, bullshit. I don't want to seem like I'm trying to be like a troll or anything like that.
God forbid any of us seem like we're trying to be trolls.
But because, you know, like I think the way I feel about activism, especially this kind of shit, is that basically like if you're there, that's one thing. If you're there in Palestine, you know, in Israel, Palestine, Gaza Strip, that's one thing. But like as an American, like I don't really feel like or really anybody in the West or wherever, the jam seems like, I mean, it's written in English, you know, it's coded as like kind of like a Western thing, I thought. But I feel like games is this like powerful tool of activism, or this like a serious tool of like, you know, like this can change somebody's life. I feel like that's not really something that I wanted to do or acknowledge. I think it's fucking stupid. I mean, yeah. So, and I think like the best thing I could like give someone as far as like, you know, in that situation, you know, if they were to read these games or if they were to play the game or whatever, is basically like a good image or a good, you know, something good to imagine. I mean, right? I mean, that's all I feel I personally could give someone. I don't think like this game is going to raise awareness, or I don't think really any games like really raise away. I mean, people know what's going on there and shit like that, and I don't think games can be like life changing, and I think that's complete horse shit. So, like when I made this game, I wasn't making it from like a trolley point of view. I mean, it's kind of a fuck you to the jam, I guess. But like as far as someone in Palestine, like I mean, I feel like, as I said, the best thing I can give them is like a cool image of like anthropomorphic balloon bombs flying around or whatever. And I feel like also, but that idea I think would be repugnant to the people who run the jam, and that's why I kind of got really upset and sort of said, "No, I'm not going to submit it." So yeah, that's my thing basically. That's it.
Yeah, I think what gets me is this perfectly captures two things, right? Like it captures the relationship between distance and idealism, especially idealism in regards to violence and political violence. Like it is so easy to idealize political violence and to idealize like the horrors committed in the name of your ideology, whatever it is, when you're thousands of feet above it, right? And I think you capture that perfectly. The second thing is I love that it ends like not in horror, but in slapstick, just like Dr. Strangelove, right? Like it ends with just everything just deteriorates into comic slapstick where you're inhaling helium and you're talking in funny voices as the bomb is about to go off, right? Like
Right.
the closer you get to the moment of tragedy, the sillier it gets, not the more profound it gets. And I think that speaks to something about like the nature of violence too, and the nature of like activist violence or whatever. But yeah, no, I think that's fantastic. I think you should submit it because if they don't like it, they'll ban you from the jam, and who fucking cares?
Hey.
They'll have to have read it.
There we go.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, man. So we had a couple of people sign up while the reading was going on. First, Zoe Ozone or Max. I don't know. I don't know which you prefer, but
Yeah, Maxfield is fine. That's my real name. Zoe is my little robot daughter. Yeah, I get a little confused sometimes. Yeah, let me do this up. This is a tweet string from like 14 November of last year.
Do you have a link to it you could throw in the chat?
Yeah, let me yeah, I actually, it's fortunate I threaded it, so it should I'll just tweet it to you really quick. Usually I don't do that because I, you know, scatterbrained or whatever. I gotta scroll back down now. What a great reading. I needed this, man. I needed to hear that stuff. I've had a really kind of topsy-turvy day emotionally.
Yeah, I fucking hear you. Like,
yeah, like it's been great. Like I mean, I feel really like horizons are opening, and I feel like really, you know, more alive and optimistic than ever. But like today was like a retrospective of like myself from the past being like, hey buddy, let me tell you where you come from. You know,
yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, I've been going through a time just like that for a month or two, and it's been fucking rough. And every time I like go into these readings like, oh no, like there's gonna be people, I'm gonna be anxious, I'm gonna freak out. And then I leave them feeling so energized and feeling so much better about things. So they're a fucking godsend. I got the tweet, so
word up. Strumming a tune, what's to live for? Can't decide which side of your face I like more. Watching an actress devolve on the screen. Can't remember what things used to mean. It'll come around, I find, on rewind. Abstruse signs, bus in a tunnel, in the rain, that side of your face I love again. A day feels here and there, never hits any one spot. Like you looked at your belly and the button is gone. The feels come and go, Just spill cold coffee in my lap, it's over with. Dial tone, flat line, a lone flower won't bother to form. No attitude, no platitude. I'm a platypus swimming away. We have ways of numbing, dumbing it down. Lines spill enough to drown in and out of lungs. Amazing lays, cats cradle ball of yarn off my chest. Unravel ways oblivious. Baby, won't you clutch the plaintive tense, an ambiance of funhouse mirror and a rusty Dodge, gravel and a bad tune. My finest hour getting dirty in a sun shower, other side of 30. Far away, the kids these days take homage. The same spit glistened on ours like scars in a tree. Out on a limb, I'm watching saws make matchstick dreams and float away on a ghostly line. Echoes never reckoned a tin man. Rib cage, a cabinet of flesh. Cupboard doors, a little swing. Canary sings a tune I won't forget like the rasp of weights. She goes on smashing plates, skeletal figurine in a fever dream of scissors, a collage of endless spring, getting wet in the winter rain. I cough a bit and think of you. Right wing staccato angels, eggshell primer on a kettle, gunpowder vessels, blue glass vials for palliatives centuries gone. We want to play Robin Hood with cardboard swords, this diorama of dusty bygones. How do xylophones grow out of tune? It's just a rune, sigil of a still life promise. Cleave the apple and see it rusts over the course of an afternoon. The dull hops, generic beer can sentiment recalls the tenement bastions of lackadaisical whimsy. Once the days stretched out forever, now you wheeze in vacillation. This anthem goading you, frog-like, back into a passion. All of us, a chrysalis, set down the phone and Netflix. Headlines fester, left well enough alone. You want to reach out, like in a dream of not quite punching. Won't disturb the entropic force. Do not disturb the silence of the suburb streets at night. I overheard this glistening rain song. Cotton in my ears, stillborn orchids wrapped in plastic, lean into the light of spectacle. Mimetic iterations, vast array from sweet to sour grow, more muddled by the hour. Pummeling contemplate the absence of mojitos. This acquiescence befalls a divine numerator in batshit murmurations. The pacing goes like Cohen, a little off the deep end, swaying in the galley, lobster-like lament screaming in a stew pot. We have muscles on the mainland, pearls enough to last forever, but so many collarbones to adorn with sparkle, furtively slept with castanets blinking like two spoons. Untangling the jumper cables, I had nicked my thumb and cursed. The rain was a chorus ensemble for wiper blades to do their dance. Hypnotic came the 18 wheels, nearly hit me on the shoulder, swept away like quick editing in movies that deliver more flutter than light, darkness than night. Could have gone top shelf, but doubled down on a handle. We spoke in the nadir of retrograde, the holy force and 3 Mexican candles, your trip to Louisiana, the origins of Olmec totems and Pac-Man, the flocking force of squares. We navigated your trinket box like a couple of stoned ravens. The thing about a requiem is it's supposed to last forever. But the galley of holy wisdom snarls like a bulldozer, teething on a riverbank, a ravenous eddy beat like a hula dancer, plastic on the dashboard and a teddy. Tangles, no cosmic octopus can put the spaghetti back in the box. Lull strumming on a detuned mandolin. Can't remember which side of your face I like better again. I've gone maudlin like the sorrow lines that suit your sad side. Thirsty for the spark force. Double dimpled dominant smile emblazoned drowns the blues with the power of 1,000 suns.
That was spectacular. I love the like really evocative imagery in this. Like you get so much emotion and you just evoke so much in these short little lines. Is this AI assisted like a lot of your other writing, or is this like?
Oh no, not that shit, man. You got to live in a body a few decades to write like that. I think.
I was going to say it didn't seem AI assisted to me. It has that like same kind of like stream of consciousness sort of cadence that AI assistant writing sometimes has, but it was like so sharp and rich in terms of the imagery and in terms of what you evoked there. It was awesome.
Thank you.
Up next is Stephen.
What's up?
Hey, oh my gosh. Is that young Stephen? Is that?
No, this is Baby Geniuses. All right. Well, I was gonna read the car wash. Story, but you were talking about helium and stuff. So I'm gonna read a story about birthday party called Kyle Turns 10.
Oh God. Okay. Here we go.
I don't have it pulled up yet, but I will in a second. All right. Here we go. Kyle Turns 10 by me. Wait, let me all right. I have like so many things open. I cannot see any of you, but all right. Spanky sped 90 down the highway, running terribly late for Kyle's birthday. Kyle's mother had called the night before, sounding desperate. Spanky, also desperate, held an eviction notice under his red rubber nose and said, "Yeah, for sure. I can definitely do tomorrow." Packing his equipment, he realized his helium tank had bled completely dry. Last week, a Fortune 500 company booked him for a team building event. He didn't get why adults in pressed dress shirts and Rolexes would want to watch him do what he does, but he needed the money. So he stood in an aggressively air-conditioned conference room full of accountants and admins for an entire afternoon. He powered through, honking his horn and twisting balloons while successful men reduced themselves to children. They sang "The Wheels on the Bus Go Round and Round" along with Spanky's boombox. A man from payroll held his long pink balloon sword against the throat of an exec and said, "Any last words?" Spanky paid off 2 of the 5 months he was in the hole for. He called the electric company. He cleared rotted vegetables and meat from his fridge. He poured coagulated chunks of skim milk down the sink. When the power came back, he spread his fingers in the reactivated coolness of the fridge, which felt good but smelled like shit. Kyle's house was infested with elementary schoolers chanting, "Where is he? Where is he?" pounding little fists against pudgy thighs. Mouths slick with spit and pixie stick sugar. Kyle's mother tried to hold them off by knifing the sheet cake early. The birthday boy closed his eyes and blew out all 10 candles. He knew not to tell anyone his wish, that would only jinx it. Kyle hadn't wanted to invite Calvin, who reeked of low tide and rode to school in a smaller, specialer bus, but his mother said it wasn't up for debate. This clown's performed for Adam Sandler's kids. How do you think Calvin will feel on Monday when he realizes everyone else was there? Kyle mulled this over and mumbled, probably as bad as he smells. She tried to suppress her laugh, but couldn't. Gladys drove an appropriate speed, marveling at the morning Jesus created for her. She listened to the song about how much he loved the lepers despite their lesions and open sores. The church offered drip coffee and donuts after the service, and Gladys couldn't wait to chat the homily and drink half and half straight from their thimbles. Her new iPhone interrupted the leprosy song. It rang and flashed a photo of her granddaughter, that angel, who'd taught her how to answer calls. Gladys turned the knob on the stereo to bring, "Oh, Jesus loved the lepers, oh, Jesus loved the lepers, oh, Jesus loved the lepers, and I do too," down to a hushed whisper. "Hi, sweetie," she said a tad too loud. "Good morning," Alice said. She'd just lost a tooth. She was so beyond excited for her visit from the tooth fairy. Gladys bit her tongue. "Oh, how wonderful," she said, instead of explaining how the tooth fairy violated the second commandment. After all, Alice was only 6. There'd be ample time for that later. Gladys cranked the volume way the HE double hockey sticks back up and belted along. The next track was about Jesus turning water into wine. She tapped the steering wheel almost in time. If only he could turn the reception coffee into wine. That would be miraculous. The sacramental sip of his blood from the chalice wasn't nearly enough. She cracked herself up. Earlier, Spanky popped into Party City with a large number of airless balloons concealed in his armpit. In the pin the tail on the donkey aisle, he mimed the normal guy trying to decide which bare-butted donkey was best. He didn't want the lard-ass manager getting suspicious. He scrutinized a donkey with dreadlocks, traced white glove fingertips over one wearing a firefighter helmet. He shot furtive looks at the high school girl working the balloon counter. When his gaze got to Donkey from Shrek, he thought of his son. The minutes drizzled over him. He thought of the layers of ogres and onions. He thought of his wife, who was no longer his wife, how she'd said God works in mysterious ways, how evil a phrase to say in the cemetery before the earth even got patted down. Then Balloon Girl grabbed the pack of cigs. Spanky's body trembled with fight or flight. He went in for the kill. Kyle's mother went on filibustering. She was losing them. A very recent single mother, she needed this party to run seamless. Kyle already couldn't shut up about how much cooler his dad got after the split. Apparently, he now allowed Kyle to order from the grown-up menu at restaurants, even if he couldn't finish all his food. The other moms were useless. On their 4th or 5th servings of the sangria, Kyle's mother mistakenly thought a good idea. 2 boys from Kyle's class tugged each of one girl's pigtails. She thrashed and whimpered, but they wouldn't let up. It looked like they'd rip her head clean in half. Kyle's mother grabbed both boys by their wrists and lugged them to the TV den. She shoved them onto the sofa and pulled out the big guns, renting an R-rated movie from On Demand. With the bullies distracted and salivating in anticipation of maybe seeing boobs, Kyle's mother found the girl in a heap crying in the hallway. She spoke softly to her. She learned the girl's name was Emily and that Emily was gluten-free. Then she learned what gluten was. Kyle's mother soothed her enough to rejoin the rest of the children in the backyard. Glutinous, white powdered donuts hung from dental floss tied to the branches of a sugar maple. One of the other mothers stumbled on the patio. Her chin was stained purple. She spoke loudly of Weight Watchers. The rest of the moms laughed about how their husbands were going to kill them all. Spanky launched his body over the unattended counter. One by one, he fit balloons snug over the nozzle of a helium tank, amassing an entire bouquet, strings and all. It hovered obviously above him. The manager caught on and his thick neck turned red. In full-blown caricature of his own authority, he trundled over. What in golly heaven are you doing, clown? Spanky beeline for the automatic doors, lard ass asthmatically hot on his tail. He burst through Balloon Girl's blue cloud of Newport smoke into the baking late morning sun of the parking lot. Balloon Girl mouthed what the as he tripped over his intentionally too big shoes. He, along with most of the balloons, made it inside his car before Lardass caught up. The three that had slipped his grip became tiny, colorful dots in the sky. He locked the door. Mr. Big Bad Party City manager huffed and puffed and fogged the window. He blapped his flabby fists against the glass. I'll call the police. Spanky lowered the window, the tiniest crack, and squeezed a pump hidden inside his sleeve. A thin stream of water squirted from the daisy on his lapel, arced through the gap, and hit the manager square in the iris. Oh yeah, I'm sure that'll go well. Here, the cops are really cracking down on helium theft these days, Spanky shouted as he yanked into reverse. It's just air, dude. The man watched him peel away, hands on knees in defeat. A tear that did not belong to him slalomed the lumpen ramp of his cheek. The donuts swung like mocking pendulums as Kyle's classmates tried to re-up their sugar highs. Everyone was blindfolded, hands tied behind their backs. Kyle's mother checked on the pigtail pullers from the window. They were on the couch, enraptured. She grinned. They wouldn't be seeing any tits. The film was a slow burn melodrama set during Prohibition about a bootlegger and his wife, and was only rated R because the couple said fuck more than once. Kyle ran circles around his incapacitated classmates. He beat his belly like a bongo drum, repeatedly yelling, "I'm awesome." He kept checking the driveway, but his dad's car was never there. The balloons bumped against Spanky's rainbow wig in rear view. A yellow one obstructed his vision, and he dismissed the blink of a turn signal as a glint of sunlight. As he merged towards the off-ramp to Kyle's house, he clipped the tail of a cream-colored Cadillac. Kyle's classmates were young enough that a game of Twister was just a game of Twister. So when his mother herded everyone back inside, that's what they did. Calvin stuttered about a stomach ache and eased himself into the empty space on a couch cramped with shit-faced moms. They immediately took to him, tussling his hair. He smiled the smile of a divorced dad at Hooters, convinced the feminine attention he was getting was genuine. In the den, a soaring violin score indicated the movie was over. Kyle's mother walked in on the pigtail pullers, eyes glazed and mouths agape as they watched the scroll of end credits. She asked what they thought. Fucking brilliant, they said in unison. She told them to watch their mouths. You're a fucking disgrace, one shrieked in a surprisingly accurate imitation. Kyle's mother winked and asked if they could keep the secret that she let them watch an R-rated movie. She felt their eyes and her cleavage as they nodded yes. A slice of shattered window severed a vein in Gladys's forehead. In her rear view, she looked just like Jesus with his crown of thorns. She smiled as shock set in. Kyle flicked the spinner and commanded, right hand green. The children mutated into a tangle of twisted limbs. Kyle's mother slipped away to her bedroom to call the tardy clown. Went straight to voicemail. Hey, hey, spring boing sound effect. You've reached Spanky, slide whistle sound effect. I'm sorry I couldn't answer your call, foghorn sound effect. I'm having too much fun, pie splat sound effect. Leave a message and I'll be sure to get back to you pronto, slipping on banana peel sound effects. Whoopsies. After the beep, Kyle's mother left an angry string of expletives even worse than fuck. One of the Spanky's tires suffered the same fate as Gladys. A shard from her window snagged the tread. It punctured and hissed. He didn't have a spare. He prayed AAA would show before the cops. The pigtail pullers were kicking absolute ass at Twister. Emily was on her phone asking her mother between hyperventilations if there was gluten in white powdered dough nuts or if that was just chocolate glazed. The Sangria moms gave Calvin a sip from each of their solo cups and goaded him into approaching Emily, who they just learned was Calvin's crush. Whoa, your parents let you have an iPhone? Got any games? He said, then took a deep and relieved breath. He'd broken the ice. Her wet blue eyes shot knives. Fuck yourself, Stinky. Got any deodorant? She said, stabbing a finger into his putrid pit. Head throbbing with booze and shame, Calvin plodded off to the room where Kyle kept his Legos. He turned off the light and sat there alone, attempting the breathing exercise his aide had taught him. In through the nose, he decapitated a miniature yellow man. Out through the mouth. Kyle's mother clicked post on a scathing Yelp review. She felt sure Spanky the Clown would never land a gig again. Downstairs, she heard Calvin's choppy breaths coming from the Lego room. What's going on, big guy? She asked, plugging her nose. Low tide was an understatement. Calvin laughed because she sounded like Squidward. Then he shrugged, inhaled, and said, I guess people kind of suck. Kyle's mother smiled and, still Squidward, said, You're telling me. And Calvin upchunked a fondue of cake and fruity wine all over a Lego airport. Aw, honey, let's get you cleaned up. Took all the energy Kyle's mother still had to not puke as well. Kyle kept flicking the spinner as hard as it could go. Left hand blue, right foot yellow. His classmates writhed into the positions and trembled to hold them. Right hand red. The highway was constipated with traffic before the first responders even got there. Rubberneckers are ruthless. The sun and stress of it all had sweated off most of Spanky's makeup. His head collapsed into his palms. They came back coated in clumps of white and red goop. When 2 squad cars arrived, he was confused by the sharp angles they parked in. Didn't cops only park like that when there was a legitimate criminal involved? 2 cops emerged from the doors of each car. A ghastly moan came from the crashed Cadillac. The blood dripping from its driver's side door looked like a Slurpee machine on the fritz. All 4 swiftly closed in as Spanky caught a glimpse of the crumpled up frame of a woman. Her liver-spotted hands wrapped around rosary beads pressed weakly to her lips. The plastic crucifix swayed with her each labored breath. Spanky never knew a body could bend like that. Hands on your head, one of the cops shouted. Spanky buried his hands in his rainbow afro. Another cop told him to get on his knees. He knelt in the pool of the woman's blood, baptizing his intentionally too big pinstripe pants. Her burst artery spurted. The cop with the close-cropped blonde crew cut slapped some cuffs on Spanky's wrists. He clicked them as tight as they could physically go. Then he clicked them once more. The bald cop said he had the right to remain silent. The other 2 cops manhandled Spanky into the backseat of the squad car, his poofy wig flattened against the roof. When they flicked on the lights and sirens to part the sea of stop-and-go cars, Spanky looked out the window. A paramedic employed the jaws of life, so another paramedic could reach inside and press 2 fingers to the woman's neck. Got anything? Spanky thought of his son, who would have been 16. He thought of the different shapes grief can take. Nothing. He cherished his right to remain silent. An ice cream truck jingle lured the children to the front lawn. They moved in a single mass, craning necks to decide which cartoon characters would taste best in popsicle form. They tugged at their mother's pleather purse straps with pleading eyes. The moms dug out dollars. The ice cream Kyle's mother had laid out was melting inside the house. She'd blown so much money on that ice cream and wasted even more on that dumb clown who didn't even show up. She thought about how Kyle's dad was golfing with investment brokers on his only son's birthday. She reminded herself she was a good mom, a cool mom, goddammit. She was the cool one. As the ice cream truck went into yet another grating loop of the wheels on the bus, most of Kyle's classmates held demented-looking Spider-Man, SpongeBobs, and Tweety birds. The dissonance created by a cop car speeding by made the truck's song even worse. The kids looked up and swore they saw a clown, streaks of red running down his face like he was bleeding from his temple. Kyle's mother maintained her death glare at the gaggle of other moms. They'd moved onto vodka nips they'd brought themselves. One of them imitated the bow-legged way Calvin walked. The rest tossed their head back in hysterics. What the hell is your problem? Moms and kids alike looked up in alarm. You know he can't help it. And where the fuck do you get off giving him alcohol? You think you're funny? This is a joke to you? The other moms made faces like they drank sour milk and couldn't do anything but swallow. They angled their shoulders back into their stupid enclave. Hey, cunt, I'm talking to you. They kept their backs turned like the spineless lost causes they were. Kyle's mother tried to calm herself down. They weren't worth it. She went and joined Kyle and his classmates. She was the cool mom, the coolest mom. Inside the car, the cops laughed viciously as they rattled off Spanky's charges. Tax evasion, helium larceny, assault with the deadly daisy, speeding, and the best one, granny slaughter. Calvin, chomping that off the head of a Sonic the Hedgehog, said, "Hey, Kyle, wasn't that Spanky?" Kyle said, "Yeah, Calvin, I think it was." Emily asked, "Where is he going?" One of the pigtail pullers said, "He's going away for a long, long time." The other pigtail puller shouted, "Fuck you, clown." Kyle's mother cupped her hands into a megaphone and shouted, "Fuck you, clown." The mom shot sanctimonious looks while all their children laughed so hard their guts hurt. "Fuck you, clown," they kept screaming. They screamed and kept screaming. Their laughter resounded down the street, following the squad car until it reached the end, took a right, then vanished.
That was fucking tremendous. So vicious.
Sorry if that was too long.
No, that was beautiful. That was perfect. That was everything a dark comedy should be, like a Salons film, right? It gets ugly and you're like, Jesus, this can't possibly get any uglier. And then it gets uglier and uglier and uglier and funnier and funnier and funnier the uglier it gets. Just like astute and nasty. Just great. Thank you, Stephen. That was fantastic.
Yeah, I'm like really blessed that you said Salons because he is big influence.
Yeah, Rudy and I love his work too, so that's why he came to mind. You know.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. No, that was fucking awesome. Thank you, man.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I don't think we've got anyone else signed up. So if somebody wants to read now, say so in the chat. We can do open mic. We probably do a couple more, or we could end here. It's oh, Tyler has something. Yeah, Tyler. Can't hear you. I can see you talking, Tyler, but I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear.
All right, cool. Let's turn my air conditioner off so you can hear me. Just put it in a paste bin right here. Oh, what's it doing?
Paste bin not cooperating.
It says because there's fucking swear words in it, it can only be published with the visibility set to private. So
Oh, really? Maybe toss it in a Google
Okay.
Doc? Man,
See
puritanical
if that
paste bin.
works.
Can you PDF it? I can throw it on my site real quick if you can PDF it.
I can't hear any of you guys anymore.
Oh shit, you can't?
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me now? Uh-oh.
Oops, now we can't hear you.
Now we can't hear you. Technical difficulties. Can anyone hear Eddie? Rudy, can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay. I can hear you. Oh, okay. I see the paste bin link.
Okay, I'm getting a private error on that. It says it's
Yep,
a private
you
page
know.
pending moderation. Let me see. Tyler, if you can hear me, if you can PDF it, I can throw it up on my site real quick. I can just FTP it to my site real quick. And I'll take it down, afterwards or whatever.
You know what? I'm going to use this as a chance to run to the bathroom really quickly. I will be back. Sorry. How's it going? Oh,
Oh, yeah, Tyler linked the document in the
Google
chat.
Doc. Yep, the Google Doc works. I don't know if you can hear us, Tyler, or if you can. Can you hear me? Can we hear you? Oh no. It looks like from your nodding, it looks like you can hear us, but I'm not hearing you right now. Oh, okay. Yeah, you can go right ahead then.
All right.
No, we can't. Sorry, Tyler, we can't hear you. Oh, I can see your lips moving, but we can't hear you. Sorry. Sorry about that, Tyler. I'll take the document and I'll put you down for next week. Okay. Okay. You know what I mean? The William, the other William in the chat says, "Fuck it, we'll do it live." I think on that note, I think we'll call it a night. I'm going to leave the chat open as usual. I'll leave the Zoom meeting up. But this has been Misery Loves Company, a weekly reading series hosted by miserytourism.com. Let's end it on a cliffhanger here. You got to tune in next week if you want to see Tyler's story. Anyway, weekly reading series hosted by miserytourism.com. Follow us on Twitter at miserytourism. Anyone is welcome to come and share their work or come and listen, lurk, whatever. We tweet out the link about 15 minutes before. 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific. Fuck it. We're done here.